Okay, so today we would like to discuss something mostly everyone is worried about or has complained about to us, and that's their property taxes. So, as they say, there are only two things that are certain in life, and it's death and taxes. So, what can you as a homeowner do if you feel that you're being unfairly assessed by your town? So, today I have Dave Huckans here from Hometown Mortgage to help us figure out what steps you need to follow if you want to grieve your taxes. Thanks for being here, Dave.
Well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so Dave, I know we've talked a lot about, your experiences with grievance. I know that, you shared a lot of stories with me. So, tell me a little bit about your personal experiences with this process.
Yes, this is nuts. It's crazy. Years ago, I bought a very valuable piece of real estate on Sagamdauga Lake, and it was the biggest purchase of my life. And I was kind of thrown into the whole assessment world once that happened. Back in 2006, New York State was pushing this 6-year plan on the local town assessors, really with not a lot of direction on how to implement the plan. And a local assessor decided they were going to pick lakefront people to assess first. Now, if there's a 6-year plan and the idea is they're going to raise your assessment over a 6-year period, would you like to go first or would you like to go last? What do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously it's one of those things where, like, what do they mean when they say like a 6-year plan? Like, what does that mean?
In order for a town to reassess a town, it's a very expensive process if they hire an outside agency. Okay. So it's over $100,000 for an outside firm to come in and reassess a whole town.
Wow.
So New York State, maybe initially thought, okay, we're going to help the town save some money and not pay these outside companies to come in, and they felt that these towns could just do it on their own. And there may be a way to do it, but the 6-year plan, as far as I know, is no longer around.
So who pays for that? Like, who, when you say it costs $100,000, like, who pays for that?
You do. You pay for it in your tax rate, because the town just adds it to their budget.
That's crazy. So what happened next?
So basically, they rolled out this plan, and I bought this property, and it was a pretty big purchase. It took a while to close because we were purchasing from a non-for-profit. And basically, the assessor decided to raise my assessment 8 times over the current assessment based on an article that she read in the newspaper.
Wow. So this article had to do with what was the gist of it?
Me not really understanding what was going to happen next, I quoted the purchase price in the paper.
Okay, so then they saw that, and then they basically said, "Boom, your taxes are now
They
going
said,
to."
They said, "Hey, I'm going to take this assessment from $200,000 all the way up to $1.6 million." And I guess if your assessment went up that much, you'd be a little bit alarmed.
Yeah, I would say so. So what did that do, like, for your tax bill? Like, how much did it? How much did it go up?
It went from, you're talking a couple $1,000s a year to, almost $20,000 a year.
Which makes it almost like not even affordable for a lot of people.
It's just not affordable.
Nor would you have bought the property if you had known.
No, if I had known, I would have never bought it. So what it did, it was just kind of threw me into understanding and researching real property assessment law in New York State.
Okay.
And I realized that, homeowners with the right guidance can grieve their taxes on their own before they have to engage an attorney.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So people don't need an attorney if they want to fight their assessment.
No. Initially, You do not need an attorney. And this is not anti-attorney. There's a lot of great attorneys out there that we would definitely recommend if you need them. And you may need them at the end, but in the beginning of the process, it's absolutely not necessary to get started.
Okay. So that happened. So this happened to you, like, you get like totally blown away by this massive change in your tax bill. So you started to research the law. What did you find out?
Well, my situation is a little different. We had to engage actually a state legislator that helped us get the tax roll thrown out for that year. It happened back in 2006. State legislator who's now retired, Senator Hugh Farley, great man. Helped us get the tax roll thrown out because the local assessor would not throw out that tax roll.
Wow.
So it did ultimately get thrown out. We got some other towns involved, and the whole county got their assessment canceled for that year. They went back to the previous year, which I believe was 2005.
I'm sure that wasn't easy. I'm sure it wasn't an easy process. I mean,
It
we're
was
kind
not-
of summarizing it here, but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you must have been through. How long does something like that take?
Well, the grievance period, usually you start grieving your taxes in May. Your tentative roll comes out June 1st. Your final roll comes out July 1st. Back that year, we had a Chamber of Commerce that was very involved. It actually sparked us to organize a town hall meeting at the local college. And as far as I know, after that happened, the 6-year plan was scrapped by the state.
So now that that plan is sort of no longer being used, what is sort of like the process now in terms of like what somebody wants to do? Like as far as like how the assessments are going to work?
Yeah. I mean, you can't just walk in and say, hey, I want my assessment reduced. You got to have a plan. So you need data, So basically you need to find comparables in your local neighborhood that are similar to your house. So for example, I will always start with the style of your house and the square footage of your house. So those are the two first things you have to be aware of. What do you have? Do you have a colonial? Do you have a ranch? You got 3,000 square feet. You got 4,000 square feet. So those are the first two things you got to identify.
Well, what is really like, let's just backtrack here for a second. So let's say that somebody wants to really like understand whether or not their taxes are fair, right? What would be like the first step for somebody to sort of figure out like what their taxes are based on or what their taxes even are?
Yeah, well, you got to look at your assessment, and you're not looking at your fair market value because that can change every year based on your equalization rate. And don't even try to look at that fair market value because you'll just get frustrated. So look at your assessment. So I started and I created like a data sheet, which is basically just a spreadsheet of one subject property and then 4 comparables. So what I did is I started a spreadsheet which has our subject, which in this case is a colonial. And then I have 5 categories. I have what's your assessment, what's your square footage, how many bedrooms do you have, how many bathrooms do you have, and what's your lot size.
So let me just stop you there. So what is really the difference between your assessed value and your market value? Because you mentioned like really focus on your assessed value, but what's really the difference?
Well, if you are 100% equalization, then in a perfect world, your fair market value and your assessment should be equal. So, some towns are 100% have a 100% equalization rate. Some towns actually are over 100% equalization, although they don't give you that information.
Well, what do you mean? Like in what circumstance would that happen?
So, let's pick on my hometown, which is Gloversville, is where I graduated from high school. I know that certain years they are over 100% assessment. They have low property values. Assessments don't change every year, but property values change. So if your values go down a little bit, you could have like 110, 120% equalization rate, and they're not going to tell you that, but you need to stay informed and you need to find that out.
Right. So basically what they're doing is they're taking your assessed value and they're taking your tax rate and then they're coming up with like a budgetary number. And is that kind of how it works? And then that budget.
You pay taxes, which is basically your assessment times your tax rate. And in some towns, if you have a village or a city, you're paying 3 taxes.
Right.
You're paying city, county, and school.
So they're basically kind of looking for, the raising the money to pay for the school budget, essentially.
Yeah, that's
for
one
school
of
taxes.
them. That's one of them. Yeah,
Okay.
they got budgets they need to pay for. Everyone's got bills, and but the town. The crazy thing here is that the town sets the assessment for all 3 entities. So really, the school district doesn't have control over your assessment.
Right. So the school is basically saying, all right, town, what is 123 Main Street worth? And they're running with that, and then they're figuring out, based on their school budget, how much they need to tax you at 123 Main Street. Is that kind of how it works? Okay.
You got it. Yep.
So, yeah, I want to tell you a quick story, too, because I had an experience with a client of mine. It was a seller, and we were having a really hard time selling the house. And it was a beautiful house, and we had tons of showings. And the house we had listed for, I want to say it was around $550,000. And the taxes were extremely high. The town had the house valued at, I want to say it was like $625,000. It was a little over $600,000. So we had all this great feedback from these showings, but nobody would make an offer because the taxes were too high, so it didn't really matter what we were, how great the house was. Nobody would show it. Nobody would make offers, I mean. So I asked the seller, hey, can I grieve your taxes for you? And I'd never done it before. And I did a bunch of research online and they said, sure, that'd be great. So I went to the town and I put a proposal together. I basically put a presentation together where, kind of what you're talking about. I took a look at their property, which would be the subject, and then I pulled, 3 or 4 comparable sales and sort of justified where we were coming up with our asking price.
Was that in front of the bar? Or
yeah, there were 3 or 4 people there.
Okay. Now that's the local bar where you go drinking, right?
No, different bar, right?
Okay, so this is the Bar of Assessment Review.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So I went in there.
Board of Assessment Review.
Yeah, Board of Assessment Review. I went in there. They weren't super nice. They were, it was a very, cold welcome. I wouldn't say that they were super friendly or happy.
They don't have to respond. I mean, they're just there to listen.
Absolutely. And, I really put together what I thought was a good presentation as to why these homeowners were overassessed. So basically what happened was I presented the comparable sales and then I presented all of the feedback from all the showings that we've had. I said, look, we're on the market for $550.
Did they give you an answer that day?
No, they did not give me an answer that day.
How long did it take?
I think my client told me that they found out like a month later.
Okay, well, here's the thing. That's great, and you got satisfaction, right?
Yes.
So that's awesome. But the thing is, in hindsight, you got to start earlier. Like, you got to go directly to the assessor ahead of time.
Okay.
So you don't have your client not knowing for a whole month, because it was probably horrible for that client to have to wait.
Well, yeah, we definitely lost marketing time. I mean, ultimately, we did get the assessment down. I mean, the proof was that, hey, listen, you've got these guys. It should have been
reduced, right?
They're at $625. I've got this house on the market for 4 months for $550. We've had 20 showings. No one's making an offer.
It's
How can
nuts.
it be worth $625 if it's we're marketing it? These are all the places that we're advertising. It's not like we're sitting on our hands.
Right.
So anyway, so it was just turned out that they did win. We did ultimately sell the house, and
good for you.
So tell me a little bit about. So you mentioned that we shouldn't actually wait for grievance day. So what is my first step if I think my taxes are too high?
I would hit it early. I would go in there with your data. January, February, March. You don't want to be walking in there. Certainly not in May, and even April to me is too late. You want to go in there as early as possible, after the first of the year, after the holidays, with your data, and just have a nice, respectful conversation with the assessor.
Okay, so where do I find my data? Like, what's the best way? Like, if I'm a homeowner, what's the best way to kind of find the comps?
New York State has a website. It's called Systems Development Group, New York State. So if you just Google ImageMate online, it will pop up. It's not perfect, but it's really a good place to start. And they'll actually give you comparables. They may give you comparables right in this website, but you'll definitely get the data you need as far as like the style, the square footage, and your neighbors.
And Zillow too. I mean, listen, there's so much. Everybody kind of knows. Like, I always tell my clients, go to your neighbors' open houses. Figure out what things are selling for in your neighborhood. Be an informed person.
But we both came up with this idea. It was actually your idea that. You want to do a workshop, right?
Yeah. So, in order to help anyone who's interested in learning more about this process, Dave and I are going to host a grievance workshop on February 13th at my team's offices, which are located at 125 High Rock Ave, Suite 200 in Saratoga Springs. And, anyone who's interested in learning what their home is assessed for or have any questions for us, you can call me at 518-858-8820, or Dave, you want to give them your cell number?
Yeah, sure. Why not? 518-527-4647. Now, Shannon, is there going to be a fee for this?
No, it's totally free. We just want to, give you guys some tips and tricks about how you can learn about the grievance process, and of course, answer any questions that you have. So we look forward to helping you guys if you need help with anything. And thank you so much for listening. Dave, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me in this lovely office. This is awesome.
Thank you.